A lot of the nation has missed the point this past year. The New Orleans investigations were not about southern Louisiana. The entire nation has a 40-year deficit in terms of spending and refurbishing and so on levees, and we have massive levee risk in lots of areas. And it's an almost insurmountable hurdle at this point in terms of amount and decline. California's taking a very avant-garde role there, but we're getting not a lot of federal help. And so you guys become important twice, both in terms of enlightening your colleagues and friends, but also in terms of the politics of the situation. But we will start in New Orleans. And to start in New Orleans, I want to begin by pointing out, although I can't advance, I guess I'll stand over here, by pointing out that New Orleans, we're frozen. There we go. I can advance with the other button, this will work. Okay, by pointing out that New Orleans is officially now the most costly failure of an engineered system in the history of the world. The estimated losses are on the order of about $150 to $300 billion. Almost 1,500 people died. 400,000 people were initially displaced from their home, and more than half of them remain displaced. And 85% of a major American city was essentially destroyed. The other thing I have to point out is that what I'm going to say next isn't my own work. It's the work of a very large team. As was pointed out, it was the NSF-sponsored National Investigation Team. This is a group in the end of 39 leading national and international experts, people all much smarter than myself, who between them had amazing conjugate experience. Parts of the list, these guys had studied 14 major earthquakes, domestic and abroad. They'd studied 12 hurricanes, 2 tsunamis, Space Shuttle disasters, Challenger and Columbia, the Exxon Valdez oil spill, numerous offshore platform collapses. I think it was 17 dam failures, basically carnage, death, and destruction all over the world. And they were a very outstanding group of people and a real experience to work with. They also, I have to point out parenthetically, were the best of everything about what we do. They all worked for free. We could never have afforded to hire these guys, but when we offered them the chance to work pro bono, they all jumped on it. So these guys dug in hard, risking their own careers uphill against the federal pressures, which were enormous at some times, to do the right thing because it was necessary and because somebody had to do it. Okay, New Orleans was worse than you think. Everybody knows that it was bad, but it was actually, when you go and see it, it was worse than you think. The scope of the devastation was just amazing. I've been to three earthquakes where over 15 to 20,000 people died each, and so I've seen lots of dead bodies, and I know that smell very intimately. But we had never seen anything in terms of the pervasiveness of destruction in New Orleans. In a big earthquake, you have pockets of damage, and in between the pockets of damage, you have pockets that aren't damaged. In New Orleans, there were no pockets that weren't damaged. Hundreds of city blocks were flooded all at once, just like this. You can take this photograph and extend it again, and you can drive for 15, 20 minutes across parts of town. And it just stayed like this the whole time. These are all flooded to their roofs and eaves, and some of them beyond that. And if you zoom in on a photograph like this, what you find is individual catastrophes, one household at a time. These people have lost everything. They've lost the home that they spent their whole life buying, purchasing, and furnishing. They've lost their community and their neighbors, so they have nobody to help them begin rebuilding. They've lost their church and their community, which is very important in New Orleans, and they've lost their jobs because their businesses have been flooded out as well. In fact, if they want to go back in and camp and begin tearing their house apart down to the bare timbers, treating it for fungus and rot and rebuilding it, they haven't even got stores to shop at because the stores were also destroyed. It's a very tough business. There's a scope of devastation here which transcends the American experience in modern times. And if you drove across town, you've had a sort of a new sense of topography. It was a really odd and eerie experience. As you drive across any town, even Berkeley, you know you're coming up the hill and you're going down the hill, but you're not aware so much of how the hill goes up and down a bit as you travel. In New Orleans you are, because in New Orleans, as you travel, there's this terrible line that just runs straight across each neighborhood. And that's the bathtub ring. Everything below there has had the paint stripped off and damaged by the salt water. The trees and the vegetation are all dead below there, but they're often bright and green and happy above. And that's been salt water mixed with toxic solvents and things from people's bathrooms and garages. And it's a very eerie experience. It makes topography very readily apparent in the city of New Orleans. The other thing you do as you drive across town is you inadvertently watch the big red X's. And what you look for is the little O. The little O means nobody died in this one. And of course, it wasn't always that way with all the X's.